All right, welcome to this week's podcast, season 3, episode 9. We're starting to heat up here in Wisconsin, but our guest is actually from Europe. Julia, thanks for giving us the time on this gray. Well, I don't know. Your weather looks sunny. I'm gonna call it a gray day, but you look sunny.
Yeah, it's not bad today. I mean, actually, it was raining and miserable yesterday, so thank God today we've got some sunshine finally, just for
Nice.
April.
I know.
Um, yeah,
I
it's
know.
kind
We're
of
in
late.
Wisconsin. I don't know what your weather is like, but we are finally gonna hit like the 70s for the first time this year, which is fantastic. Later on in the week. I'm
Yeah,
ready for.
well,
I don't do snow. I'm not. I don't like it.
same.
Yeah,
No, thank you.
yeah.
I
Um,
don't understand people skiing and, snowy weather. No, thanks.
me either. Me either. It looks fun to watch, but I don't want to get out there. I
Yeah,
feel
when
like
you're sitting in a hot tub and watching it on the screen, fine, it looks fine. But then
way
if you're
better.
actually in there, no, thank
Yeah.
you.
I know. Um, I just stay in like the ski lodge. That'd be my little corridor. Well, Julia, thanks again for being on the show. I always start off the show the same way. Can you give our viewers just a 30-second background of what you do or where you came from, getting you into this position?
Well, okay. That'll
It's
be
very
interesting.
open-ended. I love asking this question because no one has said like I was born and my parent was in real estate and I took over the family business at 18 and I've done it my whole life. They're usually like a teacher or
Okay,
something
well,
so
I'll
off
shock you then. So
base.
I'm originally from Poland, and my family was always in the construction industry. My father used to be an equivalent of a building control inspector, and my mum used to be a construction buyer in a company doing commercial and generally infrastructure projects in Poland. And I actually didn't really plan to go into construction industry per se. I wanted to go more into the design space. I wanted to be an architect. But back then, when I was, planning my future, in order to study architecture, you had to pass the exams, and the exam was an A1 sheet of paper, a couple of pencils, 3 hours of time, and you had to draw, and unfortunately I failed, right? So basically that was me and my design career aspirations. I came to London for summer. That summer has lasted 13 years now. I kind of tried to run away from the construction space and not pursuing the career that my parents did, and I ended up in the same industry, just different country.
It
Okay.
happens. I'm sure
Yeah.
your table talk as kids or like around the dinner table is all real estate and work. So kind of makes sense.
Yeah, to be fair, I mean, I still don't really think that my parents understand what it is I actually do. Because in Poland, generally we don't really have as developed, landscape of roles. Usually there's, somebody called the foreman, or, a person in charge of the site. That's
Yeah.
it. There's very little, other people involved. If somebody has an architect, brilliant. That's like the top level investment project, but usually it's just, a builder and a person X that's just in charge. But yeah, to be fair, it's always interesting when my dad wants to give me advice on, have you thought about doing this and that this way, because back in the 80s that's how we used to do it, and it works until now.
Yeah.
Smart man. Always the dad always has to give the did you think about statements. Mandatory. All right, so you're saying that in in London they usually just have the foreman and then that
No,
is the
that's the way we've got it in Poland. When I
gotcha.
used to observe my parents, let's say, that's how it usually, that's what the setup was. And even now, when I still, see my friends and, other family that still lives in Poland, there's not much other people involved in the actual project, regardless of how much is being spent on it. Whereas in UK, in London, it's fairly typical that there is an architect involved, there's a QS involved at some stage, not
Yeah.
always, but some stage there's usually somebody else involved. And if the project is of certain caliber, stroke, a certain sum of money is being put into the work, then usually there's a PM as well.
Okay. So is there zoning in Poland? Like a residential zoning and a commercial zoning? Because where I'm coming from is if I was going to put up a house, I would have, in the States at least, I'd have to go to an architect and he would draw up the elevations and the all of the blueprints. And then you send those into the city and they would either approve them or tell you no. And then your architect's also in charge of getting the engineer to make sure that everything calcs out that the house is going to stand. And if you don't
So in
have those, the
Poland,
cities won't listen. They would tell you to go to an architect.
well, that's exactly the same how it works in London, but we
Yeah,
need to remember that London is a pre-existing city. It's already, the
yeah,
infrastructure's already there. So usually
yeah.
what the city wants to see is you're taking this building, what you're going to do with it. Whereas in Poland, most of the cities are new. So what people tend to do if they want to have a house, they buy the actual project package, as in this
Uh-oh.
it is, go apply for your permission with the city council or whoever. You don't need an architect. All you need is somebody to implement that package.
Gotcha. Okay. So the developers are pretty much selling with the plans already done, which is why the end user
Pretty
doesn't
much.
need it. Okay, awesome. And that's where you come in because you would be that person with the client. Um, would you do
I
like
never, I
finish?
never, I never worked
Well,
in
not in
Poland, so
Poland, in London,
I have
in
no
London.
clue how it works over there. But in London, it's a little bit more complex because, like we said, there's usually, if there is just the city council involved, you need the planning permission. Great. But nine times out of 10, you're usually in a conservation area as well. So there are other elements that you have to keep in line with the, whole neighborhood. You can't just use a black brick if everything is in red brick, right? And it's
Yeah,
all sorts of other regulations that you need to follow. But the way I usually work with, I mainly work with end users, private clients. So it's the people who are lawyers, accountants, IT specialists, you name them, whoever. They've got no idea what the construction is, how you even touch it, how you eat it, where do you go with it. They want to know how much it's going to cost them, how long it's going to take them, and when they can move in, and when can they start choosing paint colors, and why so late. That's what usually people
yeah,
want to know. Um, so to be fair, I'm kind of filling that gap in between the here are the drawings you can start, and then I want to choose the paint colors.
yeah,
Because that's usually when the fun starts. That's usually when people get
yes,
get involved, right?
Yeah.
yep. And that's usually about the time when they can start to see the vision of the house. Because I've worked with clients and I've worked with new builds, and you can show them blueprints, you can show them 3D renditions of what it's going to look like. But until the drywall is up and the walls are formed, they really don't get the picture. But then when that's up, their eyes light up and they're like, okay, well, this paint color is going to go here and our bed's going to go there. It just takes a
And
little bit.
why is this light over here? Can we move this socket over there? And where's the bed gonna go? I mean, it's it's always smaller than they think it will be, right? It's
Yep,
always smaller.
Mm.
So yeah.
always smaller. And then in that position with where you're at in London, is this like a licensed position or like a GC would have to go through your licensing and all that stuff or an agent?
There
Okay.
is no licensing generally in here. So we
Okay.
do have accreditations, which means, like my role, I've got a master's degree accredited by RICS, which is Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors.
Nice.
But it's not compulsory. You don't have to have it. You can register as a business, pay £13 to company's house, and tomorrow you're operating as a, quantity surveyor project manager. There's no licensing system in the UK. Essentially, you just you market yourself. If you find people wanting to pursue with you, then off you go.
Yeah.
That's a bit unfortunate, but there's no licensing whatsoever. Estate agents aren't regulated anyhow. That's why we've got all sorts of one-man banders just starting. I'm going to be an estate agent. I'm going to be a realtor. I know everything about buying, selling, letting, come to me. And then it ends up being, so yeah,
That's cool. I
that's
mean,
that's what that's where UK is kind of, not up there yet. That, unfortunately.
yeah. And I mean, there's always the dual side to the coin. Yes, licensing and regulation is great, but also having the free, open, like, avenue where you can get into without going through all the licensing is a great idea. Because you've actually found a position where you don't really like the project manager construction side, but where what you alluded to early on with the design in the, like, the interior design section, you still get your touch with that with the client as well. So you kind of found like a role you have to take on because it's part of the position, but then you also get to experience the stuff that you want to do. At least that's what I got from the
True,
beginning
but
part.
I don't really think the licensing is a bad thing necessarily, because there's a lot of, bad wood up there, and there's a lot of the people, chancers we call them. So, those people will promise you the world and, charge you an arm and a leg and a kidney transplant, and, essentially get you absolutely nowhere.
Yes.
Um, and then it kind of, I've got a couple of clients now who, lost significant amount of money because somebody, just didn't deliver what they promised. And
Yeah.
to be fair, I think if there was some sort of verification process or something to actually, establish whether somebody's qualified or not, then it would definitely help.
Yes. Absolutely. It's the same thing as our GC license here. It's an annoying
Yeah.
test to take, but obviously it's for the right reasons. Is there talks in London of this becoming a thing where it will be licensed? No.
No, I mean, we generally have such a, shortage of general specialists and, people qualified to do anything, like, let alone, PMing, QSing, cost management, property management, anything. We don't really have laborers, builders, chippies, and anybody. We've got a massive, shortage generally since Brexit, to be fair. So I don't think there's any conversation around licensing anything, to be fair, at the moment, because until we're certain that we've got enough of the supply necessary, there's not much of a sense in trying to license something that we don't have enough of anyway.
Yeah. So is there like a I mean, not a governmental push for it, but people within the industry, like people within your position, are you guys doing something, or is there anything you guys can do to help mitigate your potential clients from getting damaged by signing with someone who's a little bit reckless? Or how can you get the
Um,
word out, or how have you been, or is there, because again, we're in the States, so I don't get the feeling of any of that. So I'm
yeah.
more curious.
I mean, it's a great question, but to be fair, I don't really have an answer to it. I mean, like I said, I've got a couple of clients who have been taken on the ride already. One of my clients, she handed over the project management of her project to the architect, who said, "Yes, that's fine. I'll do everything for you." He charged her 30 grand, and by the sounds of it, he's never even went to site to check what's going on. She realized 5 months into the actual project that, she's not really getting the progress she was expecting. The house is on props, foundations being poured, and she was 150 grand out of pocket at that point.
Whew, that's
So,
fun.
we can kind of go into the how much of a reckless person she was, but it's more, I think, about the trust. And, she trusted that somebody who's an architect and qualified and, registered with the RIBA, which is the Royal Institute of British Architects as well. That's another accreditation we have here. So, if somebody like that is saying, "That's fine, I have you, I'll sort you out," there's only as much of due diligence you can do. You have to trust somebody at some point.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And it doesn't, at least in the US, I would never trust an architect to do the build. Like their specialty is drawing it up so that the people that build it can build it. So that seems
Yeah.
like a really foreign kind of
I mean, this is very, I'd say, 70s, 80s mentality, right? Where you had a builder and you had an architect and nobody else.
yeah.
That's the sort of setup that they used to have over here. So the architect would be a quantity surveyor, a project manager, possibly an engineer as well, an M&E specialist, everybody in between, right? Whereas now, we kind of, the bigger the projects, the bigger the actual information required, the technology that goes into the buildings is bloody huge, right? I mean,
Yeah.
M&E packages that go into any property, all the smart homes and all the, I don't know, sustainability systems, heat recovery, whatever you might need in the house now to comply with all the regulations we've got. I mean, that alone is, a separate piece of work. um so yeah, I just think, it's that older generation of architects thinking, I'm brilliant, I can do everything on my own, I don't need anybody else. All I'm going to do is I'm going to charge the money for six people and do one person's job, and then we end up where we end up.
Man, I see an end to that business model
Yeah,
for a
I mean,
person. Like it may
you know
work, but you'd hope that word would eventually get around that it just doesn't work.
um I mean, I think the market is verifying itself, right? Like,
Mhm.
if somebody fails one project, the other project, then it's kind of hard for them to market themselves further and
Yeah.
get trust from other people. So, I kind of believe that we don't really have to, filter through those people. They will kind of get themselves out themselves. It
Yeah.
doesn't it doesn't need.
Yeah. And that's what we hope. That's what we hope. And then
Yeah.
when you're in, because you do a lot of new builds from what it sounds like when you're involved, or do you do just like renovations of homes?
No, so I mainly work with listed properties, which means they're pre-existing buildings that are being renovated. But because
Okay.
they're listed, we have a English heritage over here looking after them. So you can't just rip everything apart or, demolish everything back to the ground and rebuild. You have to usually keep the structure. There might be some features that are listed, usually stairs, fireplaces, roof, whatever it might be, which you have to restore to its original state. You can't just rip everything apart. So that's pretty much what I do. And then because of that, you have all of the other building regs that you have to incorporate, right? Like fire rating, acoustic features. So what you need to do is usually upgrade what you've got rather than strip it back and start from scratch. So yeah, it's extra money, extra time, extra complexity, and first of all, you need to know about it.
Yeah. Man, for some reason, when you were speaking about like the old homes, and you talk about that city that was already built and pre-built, and like the difference between London and Poland, are there buildings that are listed as historic buildings? Because we have few here in the States, like in the area we're in, and those, like you said, you have to like restore them to their natural state. You can't just go in and do whatever you want to them. Do you come across a lot of those properties? Because that is
Yeah,
like
so
your build process here in the States is already kind of difficult. And then you throw a historic building on top and you are handcuffed and there's red tape everywhere. Those are
yeah,
very, very
absolutely.
hard projects.
Yeah, absolutely. So these are typical projects for me. These are typically the buildings I work with. And,
Oh
I
my
think there
gosh.
is somewhere in the region of 50, 60,000 of listed buildings in London. And not only that, but you also have something called conservation areas. And that means the building may not necessarily be listed, but the entire area is under conservation. So you can't just change everything you want to. You have to comply with certain regulations. So the overall appearance of that area is being listed, let's say, or,
Yeah.
preserved. Um, and yeah, it's like you said, it's it's very difficult from all sorts of points, right? Because, the whole UK is trying to go towards net zero and, sustainability, everything is green energy, etc. But then we're fighting against, these
Yeah.
properties that are 200, 300-year old. And, we're trying to restore something, reuse the existing features, when the carbon footprint of that is huge and enormous. So yeah, it's a
Yeah.
little bit of, give and take. New
Yeah.
new builds in UK, I don't really like new builds myself, for various reasons, to be fair. I just don't really find them as exciting as the refurbs, because with refurb, doesn't matter how well you prepare, there's always something that you don't expect.
Yeah.
So there's always this element of surprise and discovery work. Whereas with new build, if you buy a piece of land and you want to put something new, it's pretty straightforward. The chances of, finding something unexpected are very slim. And yeah, that's pretty much what I do.
Yeah. The factor one of combining old construction with new construction is already difficult. Like you don't know what you're going to find until you tear apart the wall. And then it's a whole nother problem that could be up there. So that is a challenge. And then I totally forgot about the net zero thing. Like as you restore this old historic building, can you please put on the solar panels from 300 years ago? You're like, well, that's near
Yeah,
impossible.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm working on a project now where the clients are actually Swedish, so they're very much about sustainability, natural materials, wood. They don't want to have gas at home. And to actually power a listed building, we've got three grades over here. There's grade one, which is the highest. There's grade two star, which is less, and then there's grade two, which is the most popular. It's 96% of the buildings is grade two. So they're trying to restore this grade two listed building and make it sustainable. And it's just next to impossible because, you know, the planners will never allow you to have solar panels on the roof that is listed. That
Yeah.
just doesn't happen. And at the same time, the technology we've got, in order to heat up and, make the house proper, sustainable with the heat loss it has and the lack of insulation everywhere, to make it actually, a pleasure to live in, it's just really hard. The
Yeah.
engineering that goes into it is just beyond, a regular. Yeah.
So what is the solution for the Swedish family? Like how
What's
will you I feel like you're fighting an uphill battle that
um
I don't know if you can get to.
yeah, what's the solution? I mean, we're sort of talking to go two ways. I mean, they obviously want to future proof for the future because, you know, at some point the councils will have to give up on something and allow either solar panels or air source heat pumps or something, because otherwise where's the actual energy coming from? I mean,
Right.
if every house suddenly became just powered through, the grid, and the intention in the whole of Europe is to get rid of the actual cars, as in petrol and diesel cars, and have all of them electric, where's all the power coming from? I mean, we don't really
Yeah.
have the infrastructure to accommodate for that at the moment. So we're kind of future proofing for the actual solar panels or an air source heat pump there. But we're kind of going to have to go a commercial size electric boiler route for now, and just make it oversized for no reason really. But if that's what somebody wants, who am I to tell them off?
Yeah. And are you guys on the push? What do we have in the States for like electric power? Was it 30 to 2035 is
I
what we're
don't know.
shooting for? Do you guys have like a projected in London of where you guys want to make the big push to electric? Like, is that looming over within
I
the
think
decade?
I think the plans were for 2030. I'm
Okay.
not too sure. I think the European Union has now voted that all of the cars that aren't electric are meant to be stopped being manufactured in European Union by 2035, something like that.
Okay.
But yeah, to be honest, I mean, we can all talk about it as much as we want, but what's actually being done? You
Yeah.
know, sustainability is a big word, but what's actually happening? Because other than the big talk, not really much is being done.
Yeah. And that's the scary part of
Yeah,
when we get there and we don't have the
unfortunately.
infrastructure to hold it, what's going to happen? That is
Yeah.
interesting. So, other than your historic buildings with you trying to get to your net zero or your green, are there other big obstacles that you in projects are constantly running into, either with like code or because we always run
Um,
in,
I mean, to be fair, for me, the biggest obstacle or the biggest issue, let's call it, it's usually the actual clients. Because I've the way I've chosen to run my business and my career path is I work with people who have no bloody clue how world operates, right? And you often end up explaining to someone, you can't just plonk the socket on the wall. It doesn't work like that. It's not a sticker that you can just stick on. And I know how ridiculous this sounds, but it really, people don't think in those categories. They just think, it's so simple. Like if I said I want TV here, it just magically happens. You just bring some power in a bucket, throw it into the wall, and it works. Hey, but it doesn't really happen.
No, no, no. Oh, that's funny.
So, it's usually these types of, me playing more of a primary school teacher type of a persona, when you have to explain to the client, great, but this and that needs to happen. That's why it's going to cost however much more, because this is what needs to happen.
yeah,
So yeah, it's kind of always interesting when you go into those
yeah,
conversations.
yep. And I always feel like when I'm on the GC side of it and I'm talking to those clients about either their basement remodel or their kitchen remodel, and I talk to them about all of the things and all of the steps that we go through and what we need. And we're going to, here's step one. And then when steps one is done, we're doing step two. And we do one before two because one needs to be done before two. And then you get to step two, or you're on step one. And then they ask you, like, oh, can you also do that? It's like, remember when we talked and that was in step four? Because that comes later. There's always those, I'll call them hiccups or miscommunications because I I initially am frustrated because I'm like, we talked about this, but then I have to take a step back and say, like, they've only done one of these projects. I have done how many of the projects? So I have to understand that they're still playing catch up on a lot of things. But yes, it does get frustrating if they ask you to plug a TV into a wall and you have to take a step back and
Yeah, but
breathe.
frustrating is one thing, but what one of the things I usually try to talk people into is future proofing, right? It's, you may not want something right now, but things change, right? It's exactly the approach I had when I was doing my house, right? Like the loft space that I'm in now. It hasn't been done with the main house together, but I knew from day one that this is going to happen. So I had all the services brought in here. I had all the stuff to accommodate for. I always knew I want a hot tub in the garden. We always knew we're going to have a gas barbecue. I didn't want a gas barbecue straight away. I don't want it even now. My husband does. Anyway, it's just one of those things that you're like, okay, well, we might at some point want this or that. So let's just throw a couple of cables there, or let's add, this and that and the other just in case. Whereas people don't really think like that. They
Mm-mm.
just, they hardly ever think like, oh, where do I plug my phone in the evening? So it's kind of two different worlds. And yeah, it's hard because there's only as much as you can actually predict and
Yeah.
guess, let's say. But yeah, I mean, to be fair, it's if you find a client who's done their house once, you're lucky. Usually people do it once in the lifetime, maybe
Yep.
twice. If they're towards the retirement stage, they might do a second one. But yeah, at the same time, it's just kind of guiding somebody to make them think, how they actually use the house, what do they need, what do they want, what they might want.
Mm-hmm.
um the big thing that we've got, the fancy thing now, is all the sparkling water taps, right? It's like, the latest trend. Everybody wants it.
I have never heard of sparkling water tubs.
I would.
Oh my God, you have to look
What
into
is?
that.
I want to Google this right now.
I think you said sparkling water taps.
Yeah, so in the kitchen, you
Okay.
have
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
normal tap,
Yep.
by the
Yep.
sink. That's not trendy anymore. If your tap can't make boiling water, sparkling water, and filtered water, you're definitely not trendy, right? Everybody wants a sparkling water running from their tap.
I would drink it. I love sparkling
So
water.
you got
but I
like
wouldn't.
Perrier coming right out of your faucet?
It's Perrier.
It's Perrier.
No, it's
Well, my dad was saying, "Can I have Jack Daniels running out?"
right.
You could probably put that in the soap dispenser and just
Yeah, you can
pump
put
out a
the
shot of
soap
Jack.
dispenser, but that's normal. But the stuff that is kind of cool now is to have, the kitchen tab that, you turn right or left, or you pull
Yeah.
it and you turn it left or right, and it gives you the boiling water and a sparkling water if you want. But yeah,
Interesting.
that's something we knew of, and it was fairly expensive 5 years ago. Now it's less expensive. Everybody wants it, right? So I have the clients coming back to me from 5 years ago saying, "I want that," but
I
that we've
want
not.
that. I didn't know that was a thing. Like I know they had the soda stream thing that sat on your countertop and you could make like your soda water. But you're saying that there's a faucet that literally turns on and you just get your soda water.
Correct.
What? Is the unit underneath the countertop that actually makes it?
Yeah.
This is wild. Do we have this in the US?
I'm pretty sure it's even a US technology. It's something called Zip Tap, I think.
Zip tap. I've never heard of it, but it sounds fascinating.
Zip water. I see
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Because the amount
Yeah.
of bubble water that I buy is incredible.
It's not sustainable as well, because I bet it's in plastic bottles.
It's in soda cans.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not sustainable either.
Is that a little better?
Well, it's a little better because cans can be recycled. So as long as you recycle them, then it's better.
I do recycle. I'm adamant about my recycling. But we do have zip water in the US.
Yeah, they have hot boiling water, instant chilled, and then sparkling on demand.
How much are one of those units? What do these go for? This is incredible.
$6,200.
Holy buckets.
There's another
6,206.
company that's more, because the zip tabs, they're usually commercial grade, so they're very advanced, let's call it, technology. But we have a more of a consumer version of it called Cooker, as in QU double O.
Okay.
Cooker. And these cost about a couple of grand. So yeah, you can have a look at those, and yeah.
That's crazy.
I'm sure there's stuff like that. I think Groway does one as well in here. I'm not too sure if it's available because the problem with that is you've got the 110 volts, we've got 240. So I'm not too sure how much, the compatibility issue you'd have, but definitely have a look. It's not really that, that unusual these days. In UK, in London, anybody can have it, and it's usually within 1,500, couple of grand type of an investment.
Whoa. This is cool. I'm gonna look into these. I've never seen anything like it.
Well,
but I could definitely see an end user enjoying that feature. Like if you put a bar area in and you give them one of the faucets, not in like their main kitchen maybe, but their bar area off to the side.
Yeah, and you have your bar area, you have your little ice machine somewhere,
Yes.
you have your little wine fridge, then you have your, fridge with all the soda cans and everything in it, and then you have the little, sink and tap, and then the tap actually boils water so you can make tea, and it gives you the sparkling water so you can, add some fizz to it.
We might be putting these in. We're doing a project starting here in a couple months, and it's going to be a higher end build. And we've got one of these bar units off the side of the kitchen, and I'm going to figure out a way to get this thing in there. Because that is a cool idea.
Have a look. I'm pretty sure Groway does a version of it. It's not that expensive. It's not that good either. But you're not going to use it for yourself. If it's more of a, a one-off, let's try it, then it probably costs around 600, 800 pounds. So it can't be more than $1,200 US. I would have thought. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's one of those cool things, you know, you wanna you
That's
wanna blow
new.
some mind with.
That is new. I learned something new today already. That was cool.
Yeah, there's two different systems. Chilled and sparkling is 2900.
Whoa.
2900. That grow you said grow hay? Yeah, that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
Yep. Interesting.
Is that a US made, or does that not tell you that?
I think
Um,
Grohe is I think it's German, to be fair, well, you know,
Okay.
somewhere. But to be fair, I don't really know how, like, what are the
Yeah.
suppliers in the States,
No,
but I'm
that's
sure
cool.
there's something you can find. You know, we've got probably anything in between 500 quid to 1500 quid to just supply the thing. And then you've got the zip ties that are usually about 4 or 5 grand. They are the best, I must say. They are the
Yeah.
best. And it's the only system that you can actually control how sparkling or
yeah,
how fizzy your water is.
yeah.
Whoa.
Whereas with the other ones, it is what it is. You don't get choice. Um, but yeah, it's kind of it's quite cool, right? I mean,
Yeah. That would be awesome. Because I had a soda stream for a little bit because I was so sick of buying the soda water. I bought the soda stream and you could flavor it however you wanted. I thought that was the
yeah.
coolest technology ever. Man, that is awesome. Like it's just fascinating to see the trends in different areas. Like even within the US, and then you go overseas to see what they're into and what, because we had a guest on from he's in the States, but he works for is it Fujimi? The
Fujitsu
ductless Fujitsu.
heating
I'm
pumps.
terrible with names. He does ductless units, and that's not very popular here in the US, but very popular obviously in Japan, China, more of like the London area where it's already developed, you already have structures up, but they don't have central air. So they run these ductless units through, and it he was explaining the AC like a big refrigerant line. So you're heating up your house like a refrigerator. And it's less intrusive. There's less demo you'll need to do to run your runs through your
What do you say,
house.
like a
And
3.5 inch hole in the side of the house? That's it, basically, to
yeah,
exhaust it.
it doesn't seem like the ductless units are in London too much yet, but that was another piece of technology that
They
like
are. I think I know what they are. They're kind of like big fancy radiators,
Yep.
aren't they?
yep,
Yes.
yeah,
That's what they look like. Yeah, we do have. I mean, I did fit a few of those, but I mean, they're good. Don't get me wrong, but we need to remember London is a very specific market. People
yep,
want everything invisible, unless it's the most beautiful thing in the world. They want it concealed. That's the issue with those because you can't really conceal them. Um, but yeah, to be fair, I mean, you know, in the States, aircon is a must. We're still learning that. We're still, you know, at the point we need heating, that's for sure.
yep,
But aircon, you know, people would rather pay 20 quid for a fan and just turn it on for those couple of weeks in the summer when we hit the 25 degrees.
yep,
Aircon, you know, not really. It's usually not worth the investment.
yep,
And at the same time, specifically in London, it's very difficult because you need planning permission for the aircon, and councils are not really happy to give that.
really.
So yeah, those units, the ductless units, and I think there is aircon that is actually cooled with cold water.
I
There's
believe so. Yeah.
technology that does that as well. So these are the two types that people usually go for. But
Okay. And you
yeah,
said I'm going to call them the board review because I didn't catch the term. They're not pro air conditioning.
no, it's usually the planners, the you know the councils. You need to ask the permission, but because you know London is so dense in terms of people around, and aircon is quite loud, they're
Gotcha.
not
Okay.
really happy.
Gotcha. That was my next question. Like, what was their hesitation with allowing that? But
Well,
that
so
would make sense.
you said,
Usually the level of noise the condensers produce. I mean, you know the fact that people want to plonk it on the wall of a listed building that's 100
Yeah.
years old, that's not really a nice feature to have.
Yeah.
And usually they're quite loud. So, you know, unless you provide some sort of acoustic enclosure, which also doesn't really blend in easily with the actual, environment.
Yeah, and you
And
need
then,
airflow. So if you enclose it, you're just burning your system. So
yeah.
that's tough.
So it doesn't get as warm there then, huh? Because you said 25 degrees Celsius. That's what, mid 70s here, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we usually laugh. There's a joke. There's a British joke that where when people say, last year we had summer on Tuesday. So so it last year we actually had a decent summer, to be fair, but normally there's maybe 2-3 weeks of the heat wave coming,
Oh,
and
that
then the
sucks.
rest is mid-20s.
Okay.
That
We can get
stinks.
up to 38, 40 degrees here Celsius
Yeah,
in our
we
summers.
we don't really that doesn't really happen. I mean, you can put your heating up to 30, but that's as far as it goes.
No, yeah, it gets warm. It gets warm out here sometimes for a couple of weeks, at least in August, September.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In like the US, obviously we have a wide, vast, like we got Texas and Arizona who'll get to like 112, 120. And then you've got
Yeah.
Michigan that, I mean, they have summer on Tuesday. So it's always different. And like me and Dan, when we worked for a different company, we went out to Seattle, which was Northwest. And none of their buildings really have AC. It kind of operates like how London is.
Yeah.
We happened to be there during a heat wave. So it was like 90 degrees. We stayed in the dorms at the university with no AC and no airflow. It was miserable. But for them, it doesn't make sense to put it in because the 1 week out of the year that
Yeah.
you're going to get heat, why would you run
Yep.
ducts in there? So it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly what it is. I mean, I have an aircon at home. I only have it in the bedroom. We use it maybe 3 times a year.
Whoa.
It's nice to have, though.
Yeah. In the summer,
But
mine is like
when
always,
you need it, it's nice to
yeah.
have. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah.
You
But
turn on the
to be
AC,
fair,
you get some bubbly water, and you're set to go for the day.
yeah,
You guys are living
pretty
in
much.
luxury out there.
You add some gin and tonic to it, and then you can carry on with the day, right?
There it is.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, we're at like 45 minutes. We try to keep it underneath that hour. But I do want to know if we have people on the show looking to get a hold of you, what is the best way for them to reach out to you?
Oh God. I mean, depends why they want to reach out to me. That's for
This is the
sure.
scary part. No, are you on Instagram? Like, do they follow a page or?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. You can find me on, Star Projects of London. That's my website as well. All of the contact details are there. So, if anybody wants to get in touch for some legit reasons, please do. If you want any advice in terms of US build, I probably have no opinion. I have no clue what you need to do in the US. So
Well, we
yeah,
need to get the bubbly water. That's what we need to get. That was the takeaway, was find a way to put
100%.
that into a house.
Well, I'll definitely send you a link where you can get that, because you need to try that. It's really cool, actually.
It is. I had no idea that was even a concept. So that was kind of mind-blowing that is a thing. I didn't mean to obsess about it that much, but
you can go to the extreme, put it in the bathroom, right? Have a bath filled with sparkling water.
I did
those are
see
for the
that. I did
fancy.
see that.
Those are the really high-end houses.
A sparkling double bath. Wow.
Yeah.
Man.
Interesting. Cool.
It's crazy the things they think. They got steam showers that you just put in your bathroom. Like, it's not a sauna. You're controlled by a little keypad, and then just steam just shoots. It's like that stuff. The high-end stuff is very, very cool. I don't feel like I would know how to work it. I just want a shower, like a normal shower or a normal
Well,
bath.
I'm the bath person, so I don't even care about the actual shower, steam showers and things like that. What we do kind of care about is the water softness. That's something, that we find usually necessary as well, because the water is just shit over here.
Yeah.
And that's as fancy as it goes. I mean, we could talk about, wine cellars and, all sorts of fancy stuff, but then, it's not really something that a regular Joe Blogs does.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, we don't have many wine cellars over here. And I feel like the wine culture would be bigger over in London than it is here. But in like the higher end houses, you'll get like super nice wine cellars that hold like hundreds of bottles and
I mean, to be fair, usually you get the wine cellars not always for the wine itself as well. It's just where people store drinks, right? I'm doing something now called a spiral cellar. You can Google that as well. You
yep,
can look them up on Instagram, and it's actually, a spiral staircase fitted in the hole in the ground, and it's
yep,
essentially cooled by the fact that it's cold under the ground.
yep,
So, the temperature below is already lower. Um, it's quite cool. It's quite expensive,
yes,
but it's quite cool. I mean, everything that's cool is expensive, right? Let's be
yeah.
honest. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, it all goes to what extent you want to go. I don't know if you have electric heat mats in the States as well.
Electric heat, you said?
Electric heat mats. So in the bathrooms
Uh,
mainly, we fit electric heat mats on the floor. So when you get out of the shower or when you get out of the bath, you don't just step on a cold tile, you step on a warm floor.
see, this seems like a
Oh, we
very,
have that.
very, I know we have that. It's not very common though. Like you either do in-floor heating or that's just your carpet.
Yeah,
Like
you
that's your
would lay
options.
it before um
The subfloor.
yes, you'd lay it before the sub
Yeah.
or just after the subfloor because then it goes right underneath the tile. You
Right.
put all of the
Yeah, it goes directly below the tiles,
Right.
or
Yep.
So do
we do
those
it even under the wooden floors, so it's nice and warm,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
yeah.
It's you can use it for the actual heating purpose, but you don't need to work out your outputs, etc. But mainly, especially in the bathrooms, it's for comfort, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
rather than you stepping on a cold tile with your bare foot, the
Yeah.
idea is you step on a nice warm, flooring.
And everybody loves that. Do those mats plug in? Because here in the States, they really don't like plugs near water.
No, so it's hardwired. It's permanently wired. It's on a controller, so you just set it on, whenever.
Really?
If you know that you're very likely to have a shower, say in the morning between 5 a.m. and 9 a.m., that's
Yeah.
when you set your mat to go on. That's it. You don't really, plug it or, play it. It's just hardwired back to the fuse board.
That's crazy that you can hardwire the mat in. And is all right. So you hardwire the mat in. Is that then adhered to the floor? Like you cannot move that mat at all ever?
No, so it's basically, it's basically a heating wire that goes on the
Yep.
floor. Then you tile over it, so it sits in between the tile and
Yeah.
on the
Okay.
adhesive,
That's
layer,
crazy.
and it just gives you the heat up.
And probably way more efficient than running each individual wire before you. That makes so much more sense. We
And
need to
they're
take
so
notes here in the
cheap as
States.
well.
Yeah.
They're so cheap as well. It's a matter of a couple £100 for a regular bathroom. So, you might as well put it in. If you never use it, so be it. At least you have it. But yeah, it's this type of stuff that, we kind of take from the high-end properties and put them into the regular property to make it more cool.
Yeah.
You
get
could
the
run that
nice little
same. You
amenities
should run
with it.
that same coil in the same length along your gutters on your roof, so that it can melt the snow and ice, so you don't get ice dams
So
outside.
see, we don't really get, much snow and ice, but that's actually a thing. You've got like the mats in Poland where we do have snow,
Yeah.
let alone that we have these sort of balustrade, let's call it. You put the little kind of fences so that the snow doesn't flip up and kill
Yep.
somebody.
Yep.
But then yeah, you do have the actual roof heating, or they do put the cable in to actually heat the tiles so the snow melts and there's no ice.
Yep.
usually they in here, if anything, and it's usually on the very high-end properties, they will put like one wire along the gutter so that there's no ice slopes.
Yep. Man,
Crazy. Heated driveways too. I've seen those.
those are cool.
Heated
Those are the
driveways.
two. Like there was one builder here in the US that I follow. He did a heated driveway and put it on his social media. The other one was something that you mentioned, that spiral wine cellar. They had built it underneath the island in the kitchen. So on the side of the island was a door, and then you walk down underneath your island. And that was super cool. But I don't even know where to start with that project. That it seems very, very cool, but it's all custom pieces. So like,
so it's actually not custom pieces, it's all precast. So the actual, diameter of the hole that you need to dig, it's the same. It's always the same. And then the way it's being built, it's precast elements. So it's like puzzles. They just put all these concrete, steps in. That's it.
I would feel like they would have
mystery.
those prefab units, kind of like a sauna unit, where you just have your rough room and they would put it in. This guy he had welded steel steps. So he had like the invisible riser, and it was all like him in the shop welding all these metal pieces together, because it was a metal staircase down. And then the grid, I don't know if the grid was prefabbed on the outside, but I know the steps were custom. But when he was done with it, that was a super cool feature.
I would probably expect the outer shell either precast or something, because it needs to retain the soil. Something needs to, right?
Right.
But yeah, to be fair, it's an interesting concept generally, right? It's one of those things that normally people don't expect. But yeah, and to be fair, I don't think it's even that crazy expensive. If it's a matter of, adding something cool to add value to sell the house for much higher price, brilliant. It's a really interesting system itself. If you want to have a wine cellar of any kind, or you want to add a feature that no other house on the street has, it's a great something.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I believe it. Well, it is sold. I don't know anything about London real estate because I learned so much today. So I'm going to stick to the States. I'm going to let you focus on London, because it sounds like you're bringing all the cool ideas. You're doing it well. But yeah, that was cool.
Well, I told you about the sparkling water tap today. So that's the biggest, win today.
Major win. No, that was cool. I learned so much. And I like going into it with you being overseas, I knew it was going to be a very big difference within real estate. But man, we're getting that soda thing. I'm stuck on it. I'm researching this after that. Well, no, very cool.
Next time you're planning on coming over to Europe, give me a shout and I'll show you around one of the houses I've done.
I have never been, but I really do want to.
Right.
I really do. So when I do
the
get over
tickets
there,
aren't that expensive anymore.
That is true. That is true. Well, I'm gonna contact you when we install the faucet, because we're gonna put that in somewhere. So I'll let you know about that. And if I ever make my way overseas, I will definitely let you know, because I want to check out some of the work you've been doing, because it sounds very, very cool. So keep going. Thanks for spending the time answering some of our questions we had, and giving us some awesome little tidbits there from overseas.
Thanks for having me. It was really cool to have a chat.
Yeah, no problem. Well, we'll talk soon. Have a good rest of your weekend, and stay like mellow weather. I can't say stay warm because it's not Tuesday.
Tuesday summer.
It's not Tuesday.
Yeah, well, it's Friday, but we're getting there. It's not that cold anymore. And it's not raining, thank God.
Which is perfect. Well, awesome. Well, thanks for your time. I appreciate it. Have a good rest of your day. We'll talk soon.
You too.
Thank you for
Take
being
care.
here.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.